United nations have pledged more than $10 billion towards aid to help the conflict in Syria. But critics are now wondering and even worrying that Assad will actually get some of that money as is directed to fight those and help fight those brutal air campaigns against Syrian rebels and, of course, perhaps ISIS as well. So the big question is, how much will this help the crisis, or will it fund airstrikes that have been killing civilians, particularly this week? Joining me now, Bryan, Wright, Carl Higbie, and Richard Grenell. Bryan, let me start with you. Amazing footage out there, this campaign that's been going on in Aleppo, Surrender or Starve, air campaigns, 40,000 children starving. It's just absolutely amazing. Now, I know they've broken the siege, which has been a 3.5-year siege, but at what cost?
Yeah. Well, you know, today's refugee is potentially tomorrow's terrorist if we don't do a good job at ensuring that these people have dignity at the end of the day. We need to make sure that they're housed, they have food, schools. So I think this donor conference, this money that's being directed, it's critically important to preventing not only the spread of radical Islam, but indeed the recruitment of you know, these folks from ISIS.
But can't we just throw money at it alone? I mean,
no.
Isn't that the problem with $9 billion? Here's the thing that really pisses me off, too. Germany's putting up $2.6 billion. America's putting up $1 billion. United Arab Emirates is putting up $137 million. The average person there makes 67 grand a year. I mean, it's the West. We're putting up the money, and we're still going to have to deal with the crisis, the refugee crisis.
Yeah. Absolutely. And the issue here, too, is this has become a problem by their own doing. They failed to police the problem early on when it started in very small pockets and it was working its way up. They failed to police the problem. Now it has fallen on the world. Now we are going to fight this war on their soil or ours, because, like he said, that if we let them come over here in the refugee program, they could potentially be tomorrow's terrorists. If we don't go over there and help them, you know, they're just going to do that in flocks.
But with the kind of bombing, I think on Wednesday, Richard Grenell, I read that there were 300, 500 bombs dropped in these two neighborhoods alone. Again, you see nothing but people fleeing those areas. They got to go somewhere. I know most of them are heading to Turkey, but they're not going to stop there.
Look, one of the problems that this whole you know, Syrian crisis is having is that the bombing campaign is not specifically targeted because we don't have intel officers on the ground doing the hard work of figuring out what targets we should go after. Look, we still haven't been able to get rid of the command and control center of ISIS. That was there for almost a year. We finally figured out where it was, started bombing, but it's still now moved somewhere else. We are always going to be slow with our bombing campaign if we don't have intelligence officers on the ground, otherwise known as boots on the ground.
Right.
That's what we have to do for the hard work. But when it comes to the UN's work with refugees, they're doing amazing work there in a very tough situation. There are hundreds of thousands of refugees continuing to pour into Lebanon and Turkey, all over the area, and we've got to do a better job of the international community of getting more money. The Middle East countries, all of our allies in the region need to do a lot more in terms of writing checks so that we can take care of these refugees.
But here's the thing, though, Bryan and Carl. We're talking about Russia now, Russia and Syria. They are bombing indiscriminately. They don't care. They say they're breaking the back of al-Qaeda, and perhaps they are, but they're also breaking the back of Syrian rebels who I thought were on our side.
Well, if I may, at the end of the day, this money that's being spent on these refugees really is about failure. The policy in Syria has failed. Iran and Russia, they've done an end run. You know, they've outfoxed us.
Let's leave it there. It really, really is a shame, guys.